I'm DJ Blighty. Who the hell are you?
What's going on, guys? Welcome to DJ Blighty TV, and today's video, Transition Tips Part 4. Finally back on my tutorials. If you're just watching the channel for the first time, DJ Blighty TV is mostly about tutorials, tips and advice for new, experienced and even advanced DJs. Today's video is based more towards, or aimed more towards, the beginner and intermediate DJ. It's a question I've been asked a lot in the comments on the channel on previous videos I've done, and that's how to transition from big BPM jumps. By that I'm saying more than 5%, which is a rule that I generally stick to when mixing. Now what we're going to be covering today, just to break it down quickly, is more sort of 10% BPM jumps. So I'm going to demonstrate how to move from a 90 BPM track, well 93 to be specific, up to 103 BPM track without noticing a drastic tempo change. Now with today's technology, if you are a digital DJ, you've got things like master tempo and key lock, which will help you a lot. But when it comes to vocals, what we're going to look at is really how to make it more seamless. It's easier with things like house music, the EDM, all those type of genres, because we've got a lot more instrumental to play with, so it's not quite as noticeable. But when it comes to music with vocals, especially slower tempos, like R&B and hip hop, which I'm going to be demonstrating with today, then we're going to look at how to do that without really causing much of a dramatic change. So what I'm going to go into is how to move from the 93 BPM up to the 103 BPM, and that's something you can apply backwards as well. We're not going to go into bigger BPM jumps today because I feel that's a more advanced tutorial. It would look into doing things like loops and using little tricks to cause these more drastic changes, but we will cover briefly the fact that you can get a lot of transition edits of songs which will take you on that big jump, pretty much doing all the work for you, which are available at a lot of the record pools. But what we're going to look at today is looking at my rule, which is, it's not written in a book, there's no rule book when it comes to DJing, but it's something I've applied for a very long time, having been self-taught for a long time. I started 12 years ago professionally, and what we're going to look at is how I implement my own style of mixing. You don't have to copy me or follow these rules, but they should help you to keep your mixes nice and tight and seamless, okay? So first thing we want to look at is really how I'm going to make that transition from 93 BPM all the way up to 103 BPM without it being too drastic. So your options are pretty simple. You could either keep the 93 BPM track as it is and slow the 103 BPM track down to 93, which is too drastic, or you could do it the other way around. You could speed the 93 BPM track up to 103 BPM and mix it that way. But what we're going to look at doing is a gradual transition. So when I'm demonstrating, I'll talk you through exactly what I'm doing, but what I want you to look at is the way in which I actually make that transition really gradually. So what we're going to do, we're going to play the 93 BPM track naturally to begin with, pretending that we've just mixed it in with another 90 odd BPM track or even a slower track. So we're going to play that at its natural tempo of 93 BPM. We're then going to gradually speed it up to approximately 98 BPM, which is about 5%. And what we're going to do when we bring the 103 BPM track in is slow it down 5%, so it's also running at 98 BPM, do the transition, and then gradually bring that 98 BPM of the 103 BPM track up to its natural tempo of 103 BPM. So by doing it in stages, if you're in a club environment, you're not changing the tempo of the dance floor too dramatically. It's just nice and steady. Even if you're just doing it on recorded mixes or mixtapes, you can't hear such a drastic change. I mean, if you did the 93 to 103 BPM as it was, so 93 BPM, slow down the 103 BPM to 93, and then do the mix and then speed it up to 103, it's not going to sound quite as clear and crisp. I'm not saying it's wrong. I mean, with key lock and master tempo, your vocals, pretty much like what I use on Serato DJ, I've got pitch and time. It's really solid. I mean, you can use it as far as about 20% without any noticeable change in the pitch of the record, but still, this is something you can apply if you don't use those technologies. If, for example, you're using just natural tempo on like vinyl or something like that, this will help you a lot. So we're going to move over to the laptop now and I'll talk you through exactly what I'm doing as I am doing it. Let's go. Okay, so on the left deck we got track number 1, which as you can see is playing at its natural tempo of 93 BPM. So what I'm going to do as this track's playing, we're going to wait for the intro part to finish, which is when the mix would generally end, and I would start to slowly pitch it up. But notice how slowly I'm actually doing it, so there's no drastic change. And we're going to keep slowly bringing that pitch fader up until we get to 98 BPM as we discussed earlier. What you'll always find, where there's little breaks in the track, for example where this beat drops now, it's a good time to make a nice swift pitcher. It's not as noticeable. Okay, so we've got that locked at 98. As you can see, I've got the track on the right deck queued up ready to go, already set at 98 BPM. So we're going to carry out the mix now. Just a nice simple basic mix. So now we're into track B on the right deck, and we're going to slowly start bringing that up to 103 BPM, which is, as you can see, its natural tempo, nice and slowly. And there we are. So then you're ready to scroll for your next track and do exactly the same thing. So if you wanted to go back down to the 90 area, further up to 113, 115, you just apply the same principle. So you can do this as dramatically as you want, as long as you follow those steps that I've just showed you. Like, I'm going to demonstrate now what that would have sounded like if we'd done it the other way, even with pitch and time engaged, just to show you how much more or how much difference using what I just showed you will actually make. Okay, so back to track A on the left deck, playing at its natural tempo of 93. We're going to bring the track on the right down to a 93. I'll just fast forward to the point where we mix the track. But again. Now I don't know about you, but I can already hear that track on the right. It's just playing way too slowly. Now even with the pitch and time, which is a really, really solid piece of kit, it just sounds too slow. Like, you don't even need to know that song to know that it sounds just slowed down too much. I mean, just to show you what it would sound like without the pitch and time on, listen to the difference now. That sounds awful. So if you're working without master tempo, key lock, any of those things, like, you can see the difference in the sound it makes there. But still, you've got a very long way to get it up to 103. So doing that gradually is going to take twice as long. And it's just not something, I mean, it's not to say you can't do it, but I just advise against it, just for it to sound nice and clean and neat and tidy. That's what this video is all about, keeping those mixes nice and crispy sounding. Okay. So yeah, I hope everything was clear enough. So yeah, I hope everything was clear enough in that tutorial. Try to be as precise as I possibly can. I mean, this can be applied to any sort of BPM range really, so you could use it to go from 80 to 90, 90 to 100, up to 110 and so on, and the principle's exactly the same if you're going back down the other way. It's just you flip it the opposite way, so instead of speeding up the record, you're slowing it down gradually. Now, as I said at the beginning, this is more for like beginner and intermediate DJs. It might help some advanced DJs out if, you know, you're looking for a different way to do things. This is my own personal preference. As I said, there's no set rules as to how much percentage, but I've always stuck with 5% as it's not too far away from the natural tempo of the track. So any questions, anything I haven't covered, anything I haven't covered thoroughly enough for you, anything I haven't covered thoroughly enough, just hit me up in the comments below, and when I get a chance to read them, I'll happily help you out. Any questions regarding anything on this topic that you'd like me to do a future video on, for example, more advanced transitions. So I've had someone ask like how to go from 100 to 150. That's a different ball game altogether. And the reason I say it's more advanced is because it's a little bit more technical and there's a few more in-depth things to look at, okay? So keeping it nice and simple for today. Hope I've helped a lot of you out. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe to my channel right here. And I'll hopefully help you out in a lot more videos in the future. So any questions, any topics you want me to cover, then hit me in the comments below and ask away. I'll be happy to help as and when I can. Thanks for watching today's video. I've been DJ Blighty, and thanks for watching DJ Blighty TV. See you again on the next one real soon. Peace.
I'm DJ Blighty. Who the hell are you? Hell are you? Hell are you? Hell are you?